Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Horb. I'm with Kibble Equipment. We're broadcasting live from Owatonna, Minnesota. It is Friday, February 19th, and we're going to go over a few different things. We got some good feedback on our last Facebook Live um, about some more basics of Operations Center and how do I get Apex data into Operations Center. So just got a check from my folks on the horn here that we got good audio this time, so good to hear. So we're going to spend about 30 minutes or so going over some topics that we got feedback from last time. We do have a live chat here, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll have a few other folks that are going to be responding to the comments, and I'll try to address if we have time. So with that, let's get going here. Okay, so the first question we had last time was how do I get data from my Apex system that I've been using for probably over 15 years now into Operations Center, and we're going to cover that. So here I got my desktop, and I got my trusty Apex logo. And of course, Microsoft does a good job of trying to protect us. So if you've been in Apex lately, the last update, and I'm running a demo version on this training computer here, so I'm going to hit evaluate. It pops up a splash screen saying, hey, do you want to back up your data to the John Deere Operations Center? And this goes through a bunch of different reasons why. And the ultimate reason is if you're going to be upgrading to technology like Gen 4 in the future, Apex does not work with Operations Center. And there's a lot of other benefits of running Operations Center. Mainly, you can access all of your data on the go on the Operations Center app. So it gives me a lot of different things here. There's a couple guides if you want to go step by step, but I'm just going to hit start backup. And I'm not going to go through the whole process because depending on how much data and how many years you have, this could take quite a bit of time. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version here. So what do I want to do? This is also the same utility that if you're going to do a manual backup to back up your data. And this is found under the Start menu, and it's called Backup and Restore. It doesn't really call out that it's an Apex tool, but it's the same tool. So I'm going to back it up, hit continue. And there's a few options where people get kind of confused. The first option is to upload data to John Deere Operations Center myself, and you can do this if you have a good internet connection. If you do not have a stable interconnection, I feel your pain. I live in the country, and I have struggles with internet access. So if you do not have good internet access and you want one of us at Kibble Equipment to upload this for you, we have a utility, we can do that. But you have to check this box to give my data to my John Deere dealer to upload for me. And then the third option is for safekeeping outside of John Deere Operations Center. And either way, if you pick one of these two options, there'll be a login button here, and I've already logged in. You have to log in with your John Deere Operations Center account. John Deere Operations Center is free to use, even if you don't have newer John Deere equipment. And what this does is it links the backup to your organization. And so we've ran into problems where people don't sign in. So when we do this manual backup at the dealership, the system doesn't know where to upload it to. So I'm not going to hit continue because this will take some time. But basically, after this is done, it creates a backup file. And I'll show you what that looks like. It'll be similar to this. It'll say Apex full backup. It'll ask you where to actually put the data. I think I can go to that next step without. So next step, this is another one. Would you like to inform your local John Deere dealer? If you hit yes, we'll get a lot of people at this dealership will get an email saying you need help. And then I hit yes, so it's going to ask me for my phone number. I'm going to go back and hit no. And then it asks if you would like somebody at John Deere to contact you, and if so, you put your phone number. And then it's already selected the organization. And then if I want a full backup or update changes, I would do full backup. And it's going to say it could take a few days for it to upload, but I'm not going to go do this because it can take time depending on how much data you have and your internet speeds. Okay, so that's tip number one. And again, if you want us to upload it, make sure it's on a USB stick and you've signed in, and then we can do that here. Here, the backup is running. I'm going to do a good old Control-Alt-Delete. See, this is why live demos are so great. Apex. So if you get that error, there's a little background file running in the back. So I'm going to hit End Task. And now I should be able to open Apex. Well, I guess Apex is not agreeing with me. There is this is another great reason why to back up to the John Deere Operations Center. There is a function in Apex called transfer, where you can actually sync up your Operations Center account to Apex, so it will continue to synchronize in the background. Let's try that one more time. See if I got anything else that smells like Apex here in my task list. Let's try this one, End Task. Okay, give that one more shot. If not, then we're going to go into Operations Center and do some tips. Yep. So to remedy this, I would do a complete restart on my computer and start over. So again, good excuse to upgrade to the Operations Center. Okay, so I'm logged into My John Deere. If you have not done that, it's free to create a My John Deere account. Most likely, if you've done anything with John Deere in the past, you already have one, even if you don't know it. It's usually tied to your John Deere financial account. So a few things. One other tip, I guess, before we get to that, we had a question about field view importing. There is a way, if you want to move your data out of field view into Operations Center. I'll just do a quick screen share here. There's two ways to do it. So you can import field view data. You can also import data from Case IH monitors. I just did a quick few screenshots of what it looks like on the iPad app. You log into your app and you hit next, and then there's a button called Send Field Data. Excuse me, let me go back one. You hit Settings, Send Field Data, and then I blurred this out to protect the innocent. I hit Send 2020 Data. You have to do this kind of year by year, I believe. And then you check the box of the fields that you want to send, or you can hit Select All Fields. And then you enter your email address, and then after it chugs for a while, it'll send you a link that you can download those files and then upload in the Op Center, which I'll go into that area in a little bit. If it's over 100 megabytes, we've heard some issues where you have to maybe choose only a quarter of your fields at a time to do this because it's just too large of a file to upload manually. So that was one other question, and so I kind of enjoy this. We're getting some questions from people, so we understand what they want to learn. Okay, so we had the question, how do I just create a field? So this is the landing page of Operations Center, and there's a couple different ways to create fields. On the left-hand side, we're in the map area. I'm going to click my fields, and then you can see there's a little plus icon, and all this is really a shortcut to the land area in Operations Center. So now I'm in land, and it asks, what do I want to create? We can create fields, flags, boundaries, or guidance tracks. And if you already have a client farm and field set up, you can just click Add New, or select the one that's there, and then work your way down the list. I'm going to add new client. And we get a lot of questions around what's the best way to name these. And it depends on your operation, but typically client would be who owns the operation, especially if you're doing custom work. Typically, if you do custom work with your equipment for your neighbor, You'd have one client be your operation, and the next client would be your neighbor that you're working for, doing some custom work. And then the farm names, typically that's in a structure of maybe if you're renting land or who owns the land of the fields that you're going to set up, so that you can actually create reports very quickly if you want to get a report by landlord or a report by who in the operation owns that land. So I'm going to do test 2, and then the field. One thing that we see a lot of is people, maybe move that up a notch where the client is who owns the land, and the farm is actually the field name that you reference it, and then the fields are all one. And that's pretty common, but it can be very confusing for an operator that doesn't know how that is structured. So that's just kind of a best practice. And then we also we see people too use legal descriptions or some reference of how their crop insurance person can sort this out. So it's up to you at the end of the day, but it's a good idea to think that through so it's quick for whoever's picking those fields in the monitor. This is a new function here in Base Station. If you have a Generation 4 display, 4640 or 4600, and a Starfire 6000, you can actually save the base station, RTK base station that you're running on in that field. You have to do this in the tractor cab. But then once you do that, those base stations with the radio tags, the channel IDs will come in here, and you can actually save it so that when that operator pulls into the field, it automatically switches to the base station. So you don't have to worry about using the wrong base station. Okay, so next up, I had a question about archiving fields. So you've farmed for quite a while, and now you have some fields that you just don't farm anymore, but you don't necessarily want to delete them. You don't want them to be visible in this monitor though. So under land, it's the same place where we went to create that new field. And you can see on the left-hand side, there's this filter tree that Deere uses. So if you don't see what I'm looking at, you can tab this out. Now here's your field list. And then here's this filter list, which is really nice. So you can filter down to only specific clients, farms, fields, only fields with certain guidance tracks. But up here, there's available or archived. And see this account has quite a few archived fields already. But in order to get them in that list, you simply click the fields that you want to archive, and you hit archive. And now they will no longer be available to send to the display. And the data is still in the background. You won't lose the data. And simply to get them back, let's say you pick that ground up again next year, and similar process. And there was a function like this in Apex. I think it was called retire. And here you hit make available. Cool, okay. Next question we had was, how do I merge fields? So I have two fields that I used to farm separately, but now they are farming together. So I'm going to go back to the map area. And this is kind of a common thing. Let's say you had two adjacent fields, and 1 year that's all corn. And then the next year, I'm splitting it up, and I'm doing corn on one half, and beans on corn on another half. So maybe these two fields would be a good example. So the first step is to click the field that you want to keep that name. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one, and then there's a little info button here. And you can see I have general information, but there's a merge and unmerge. And by default, it sorts the fields that are closest. And so I'm going to go back, and I'm not going to do this because this is actually a live account, and I don't want to make them mad at me. But you click the field that you want to merge into that field, and you hit merge. And it does take a little bit of time, depending on what's going on the servers, but you should be able to refresh in not too long and then see them merged. But they will not, kind of the trick is they will not show up on this map right away if there's not a boundary that unites them all. You have to make sure you have a boundary. And then if you want to undo that, you click here, you go back into that field, and then hit unmerge, and it would unmerge. Okay. Again, if you got any questions, feel free to comment in the chat. Okay, next topic we had was creating boundaries. So boundaries, again, we can do that in land. There's two ways to do, or multiple ways. You can create boundaries in the field when you have the monitor, and that's the absolute best way to do it, is to drive the boundary. That's the most accurate, especially with RTK. Second way is in this tool. I'm going to create a new boundary, and you can actually do it from a previous operation. And I'm just going to go this one, and I'm hit next, or you can draw new. And draw new is where you're doing a little Picasso action, pick your own adventure and draw it manually, which is somewhat tedious, but you can do it. That's actually quite effective if you're doing it for a pivot. And then here I'm going to do test, so we know this one is one that we don't want to use. And I'm going to choose, well, my harvest was pretty good. It's going to give me a preview of what that looks like. It actually looks fairly good, and I'm going to hit save. And there you go. And so that's a nice, easy way. So especially that merge field scenario, if it had operation data that was married up together, you could create a quick field boundary, and then that'll show up on Op Center on your phone and also in the display. I would just caution you that if it's not a driven boundary for section control, this likely would not be accurate enough for section control. But that's one nice feature with Gen 4 is you can turn off section control for boundaries if you don't want to use that. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is kind of a powerful and dangerous at the same time tool. It's called Bulk Boundary Creator. So if you have good boundaries in the system that you've driven, I'd caution you to do this. But what it's going to do is take basically any field that does not have an active boundary. It's going to look at all of your data that you have in the system in this priority. So the latest year, and then it's going to go last year of a seeding. If that didn't work, then it's going to look for harvest. If you don't have harvest, it's going to look at application, etc. You hit this button, it's going to look for everything. So any field that you don't have a boundary, boom, it'll work. And it's a good tool. If you don't have any boundaries, it's a very quick way to basically do what I just did, but in bulk. So very good tool. Again, that's under More Bulk Boundary Creator. Okay, next up, topic that was asked, have some people that work with, a lot of people work with agronomists, co-ops, and they want to export boundaries and data to share with them. So usually the best way to do that is if you have the raw files from the monitor to give it to them. If they're using another desktop software that's not John Deere, the raw files are usually the best, unless you've been doing a lot of post-calibration. Going to go back into the maps area, and this is kind of hidden. Going to touch on the fields. Going to go down to this field. Well, first, excuse me, there's this little checkbox here, which is not easily seen, and now it gives you a list to select, and you can select more than one if you want. I'm just going to do one. You can see there's this bucket here. We can archive the fields from here as well. I'm going to hit export. So now it gives me some options. Most commonly, you're going to use shapefile. There are some programs that need ISO XML, and so you want to ask the person that's going to be using this data what format they need. Do you want the boundary? And then ask you questions. Do you want individual files for each selected field, which is what I commonly do? Or do you want one shapefile that's going to be for everything? So that's just going to give me the boundary. Now, if I want to export actually application or harvest data, you have to go in here and choose a date of when that would have occurred and hit apply. And then you choose which, you see there's a little 1 here. That means that there's a layer there. And I'm going to hit next. Okay, so it's going to give me the file name. I'm going to do So you know just so you know what it is. This is pretty advanced. This is, do you want to change the projection? I've never yet ran into where I've needed to change this, but this is basically just a way of software programs measure the Earth's surface. This is the most common, but if your person wants a different one, they should be smart enough to know that you need to do it. And then you can also send this right to another person's org if they have it, which is be the slickest. Then you don't have to mess with USB sticks. It's just going to go right to them. Okay. And then I'm going to hit export. I'm going to uncheck that. Okay, then by default, it tells you what it did. And then it's going to go to files. And this is under the more area, files. This is where our files flow in from wireless data transfer. And see, I did a couple earlier for demonstration. There's a harvest export, and this one is just a boundary. After a bit, this will actually pop up that test one that I did. I'm going to show you kind of a cool ninja trick. If you want to verify that that actually worked, there's a free website called mapshaper.org. And I'm going to pull up. So here's my downloads folder. I'm going to do this one. It's all zipped up. Export into here. Kind of gives you the files that are in that zip file. This is what confuses a lot of people because there's multiple projections here. And I'm just going to hit import. Now boom, here's my boundary that I imported. So you really can't do a whole lot with this tool, but it just verifies that, hey, there's actually worked. And when I send it to somebody, should have no problem. And then I refresh this, and I'm going to show you what the harvest layer looks like. Import. Boom. So now you can see all the paths that combine made. So it gives you some level of confidence that before you ship that off to a partner, that it's good. So in files here, if you aren't going to send it manually, or excuse me, automatically, you choose the files you want to download, hit download, and it asks you if you want to just download it to your computer or through Data Manager, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to do that. The slickest deal is if you did not, okay, you see that file that we just created, that just popped up. So if you do have a partner in Operations Center, this is the easiest way to do it, not messing with USB sticks. Hit assign. So select the partner you would assign these files to, and this works with all files in here. I can choose to keep a copy or not. I'm going to hit assign. And now that partner is going to get an email saying, hey, Chris just sent you 2 files. Go to your file manager to accept. Okay. We're getting to the end here. And along that line with partnerships, in order to set up a partnership, that's under Setup and Terminals, Team. And in order to do this, the person you want to set up a partnership should already have set up a free My John Deere account. Very simple. Just go to myjohndeere.com and create new account. And in order to add to your team, you get their email address. You click Add Partner. And this likely won't work because I already am a partner. But then it reviews what access you're going to give this person. By default, it selects pretty much everything except for financial, which is the granular profit maps that can be viewed in Operations Center. You can ratchet this down as much as you want, and then you hit next. It says all staff will be assigned. So that means that if that partner has multiple people on their staff, they'll be able to see what's going on and hit finish. So this is a good area to review. If you have a lot of partners that you're working with and you've changed relationships in the past, this is a good way to change that setting. You can see here it says request pending. It means I have not accepted it. So on my email, I'm going to get an email saying, hey, this org has requested permissions or partnership. Do you accept? And you hit accept. Okay, so that is our quick rundown. I'd ask that Anybody has any comments for future topics, in about 2 weeks we'll do another one of these. We're going to lean on probably the mobile app for this next go round. There's a lot of new functionality in the mobile app that we want to review and spend some time with that. But if you have any other topics, this is really a venue for you all to ask questions as we lead up to spring. Just a couple quick reminders. If you have a receiver, you see we got a 6,000 and a 3,000 sitting here in the back. They require a mandatory software update so they can work this spring. You can either download it for free on stellarsupport.com if you're comfortable doing that yourself, or you can bring it to any Kibble location service department and we'll be happy to update them for you. But if you do not update those prior to the spring, they will not work. I found in our old GPS locker, I found one of the original receivers. That receiver and the Starfire ITC will not work going into this spring. They stopped working on February 1st. And then one last plug. If you go to kibbleq.com under our specials, we do have a flyer that does talk about the ITC and Starfire retirement. We also have a great promotion going on here with upgrading your 2G and 3G MTG to 4G, so your machines can continue to wirelessly transfer data to Operations Center, which is by far the easiest way to get the data into Op Center and share with your partners. We also have a lot of other specials going off. Our spring filter sale. Always go to kibbleq.com if you got any other questions. So with that, thank you for your time, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.